The family of murdered anti-apartheid activist Ahmed Timol want President Cyril Ramaphosa to establish a judicial commission of inquiry. This will look into the lack of apartheid-era investigations and prosecutions by the police and the NPA. Nephew of the late Ahmed Timol, Imtiaz Kaji, joins us now from our Pretoria studios. Now, Imtiaz, excuse me, I know that this what you have had to go through around your uncle's case has had a lot of influence on your thinking. But what do you think a judicial commission of inquiry will achieve?
Look, for you, the records speak for itself. 2 decades have passed since the TRC completed its work. Recommendations were made to the National Prosecution Authority, more specifically the Priority Crimes Litigation Unit, to investigate these cases. And from all reports, it is ascertained that more than 300 cases were handed over to the TRC. And it is common record that only 3 cases, the Timol matter, which was reopened last year, and then the Agate and Similani matters that have been in the court rolls for a number of years where no progress has been made. And it is very evident to us, Vuyo, and to many, many other victims' families throughout the country, that there's absolutely no political will on the part of the NPA to successfully conclude these cases. The ruling made by Judge Motle on the 12th of October 2017 was very clear that João Rodrigues be charged, and so too do Neville Els and Seth's sons. It took more than 9 months for João Rodrigues for his first court appearance, Vuyo. The charges against Neville Els and Seth's sons, more than a year and a month later, are still continuing with absolutely no indication as to when these cases will be concluded. So it is very evident that despite a historic ruling and a clear ruling made by Judge Motle that these matters must be fast-tracked and investigated, there's clearly time delays. And Rodrigues himself, in the papers that he has filed, his legal team have continuously argued that the NPA has failed to investigate this case in 1996, starting with the TRC, and when the matter was brought to the attention of the NPA in 2002. And on this particular basis, Vuyo, they are then asking for a permanent stay of prosecution against their client and expecting us to accept the fact that the charges must be dropped against their client. It is on this basis that the Timol family and many, many other families, like the Similani, the Agate, the Bigos, the Craddock Four, the Hafiji, Imam Harun, and so on, are pleading to President Cyril Ramaphosa that there has to be a commission of inquiry to establish and ascertain that why has the NPA dismally failed to reopen TRC cases.
Do you think the lack of will was only on the part of the National Prosecuting Authority? But what about those who have been in charge since 1994?
No, most certainly. If we read the affidavit submitted by Advocate Vusi Piccoli, the former National Director of Public Prosecutions, and that of the Senior Prosecutor Anton Ackerman, they clearly state of political interference, Vuyo. And there are names that have been branded in their affidavits where they were clearly stifled and prevented from investigating TRC cases. And this goes back to 2006. Now the question must be asked, that if the Timol matter, amongst many, many other matters, was thoroughly investigated in 2006, when João Rodrigues was not the only person living. The likes of Hendrik Gloy and Johannes van Niekerk and many, many others who were directly involved in the arrest, the interrogation, and we believe the murder of our beloved uncle, were all living. They all had to be prosecuted. They all had to be charged in a court of law, and formal court proceedings had to unfold. So definitely political interference has hindered not just the Timol matter, but many, many other matters.
Shouldn't then questions be asked of those individuals some of whom are named in those affidavits, but perhaps more pointedly, those individuals that were actually running the country and the governing party? Because I know for a fact that there were individuals who were initially part of the TRC process, who actually wanted this work to be done, but they were met with opposition at every turn.
Most certainly, you're 100% correct. And this is precisely what Vusi Pikoli is mentioning in his affidavit. It is very, very clear that there was most certainly political interference, which eventually led to his eviction as the National Director of Public Prosecutions. The other challenge that we have, Vuyo, and this is precisely why we're reaching out to the President of the country, we cannot expect the NPA itself to conduct these investigations. And we cannot run away from the reality that many of those officials that are deployed at the NPA and at the investigative arms in the Hawks were part of the apartheid era apparatus. And we are simply asking them to investigate the crimes committed by their own apartheid regime. It simply cannot work, Vuyo.
And you don't think that the most recent changes in the leadership of the NPA and those that we are told are yet to come may just do the trick after all these years?
But this is precisely why we need to keep this matter of the killing of Ahmed Timol, murder of Nokuthula Simelane, Neil Eggert and many others in the public domain. Because if we don't do so, what simply happens is that these TRC cases disappear. And we are going to be imploring on the newly appointed National Director of Public Prosecution, Shamila Botoi, to make it one of her many priorities to re-look not into just the murder of Ahmed Timol, but many other TRC matters, Vuyo.
Imtiaz, that's where we're going to leave it for this evening. Thanks very much for coming through. Imtiaz Kaji, who is, of course, imploring the President Cyril Ramaphosa to set up a commission of inquiry to look into the lack of these apartheid-era investigations and prosecutions by both the South African Police Services and the National Prosecuting Authority.